It's a bitter pill to swallow.
Ladies and gentlemen, from Cincinnati, Ohio, he's an NWF Hall of Famer, the manager of champions, Professor Bitterman, Kirk Sheppard.
It's a bitter pill to swallow.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to The Bitter Pill. My name is Kirk Sheppard, or Professor Bitterman, if you prefer. Welcome to our weekly Wednesday podcast where we talk about self-help and professional wrestling and merge them into one very strange and very weird hybrid podcast right here on the Talkin' Shop Radio Network. The Machine Gun and the Big LG have been gracious enough to let me do this, and I'll continue to do it and have a great time. So welcome to the show. I wanted to show you this. I found it. Machine Gun was talking about his action figures this week, and I also have one. Now, this was a fan-created one, but that's me. I do have an action figure of myself. So, Machine Gun, you know, he might have the abs that I don't have, but at least I have an action figure just like him.
Wrestler of the day. Wrestler of the day.
Today's wrestler of the day is Terry Funk. I'm behind the Funker. Terry Funk is our wrestler of the day, and I'll tell you why in just a second, but let's talk about Terry Funk. He wasn't just a wrestler. He was a force of nature. From Amarillo, Texas, the middle-aged and crazy Funker built a career that spanned over 5 decades. He redefined toughness in and out of the ring. As a former NWA champion, he could tell a story with a headlock just as well as he could with a flaming branding iron. Funk came from a wrestling family, the son of Dory Funk Sr. and younger brother of Dory Funk Jr., and he carried the Amarillo legacy around the globe. In the 1970s, he was a traveling NWA world champion, defending the title in packed arenas and small-town armories alike, adapting his style to fit every opponent and crowd. His ability to go from technical mat wrestling to wild brawls made him one of the most versatile performers ever. In the 1980s, his feud with Ric Flair in WCW became the stuff of legend, capped by their brutal I Quit match at Clash of the Champions 9. In Japan, of course, he became a cult hero, trading bloody wars with the likes of Onita and helping pioneer the exploding barbed wire death matches that shaped the deathmatch genre. And in the 90s, he redefined himself yet again in ECW, mentoring the next generation of hardcore stars while proving he could still hang with and often outshine wrestlers half his age. So one of his most famous moments happened on August the 13th, 1994. Whether it was Madison Square Garden, Kirkwood Hall, or Bingo Hall in South Philly, Terry Funk always brought the same thing: grit, emotion, and the sense that anything could happen when the Funker was in the building.
Wrestler of the day. Wrestler of the day.
Terry Funk, our wrestler of the day. Good choice, I think, yeah. If you're new here, we do a book club called the Bitter Book Club, and we're reading a book by Mel Robbins called The Let Them Theory.
It's the Bitter Book Club. It's the Bitter Book Club. Book Club.
I love this book. I think it's really been very helpful for a lot of people. And I'm enjoying going through it with you. Of course, this week's assignment was chapters 14 and 15, and they were about changing other people. Hopefully you read through that. I'm not going to rehash and recap that. Instead, I wanted to talk about change today and the idea of change theory, something I've been looking at lately with my own counseling clients. Maybe you are familiar with the theoretical stages of change. It's called the trans-theoretical model, and there are 6 stages of change, and we'll run down them quickly. So what I want to do with this information today is apply it for you personally to things in your own life that you're trying to fix or change or make better. So the stages of change. And if you think of a problem that you want to solve or a behavior you'd like to change, I want you to kind of assess where you think you might be within these stages. So pre-contemplation is basically there's no awareness of a problem. You're not thinking about change. So if you are somebody who is already thinking about what problem we're going to think about, you've already moved out of this pre-contemplation. But if you're somebody who's like, I don't have anything I want to change, nothing's wrong with me, then you may be in pre-contemplation. Contemplation then becomes the awareness of the problem, right? You're still ambivalent, but you are at least aware that you need to make a change. Preparation is when you start taking small steps towards change, gathering resources and figuring out what you need to do next. Action is when you actually make the change. Maintenance is when you work to keep it going. And then relapse is the last stage, very common, very normal, and it's not the end of the process. We just then go back to the drawing board and decide which one of those phases we're going to go back to. Hopefully, it's action. But it might be that in relapse, you need to prepare. It might be in relapse, you need to contemplate. So, no judgment. This is a very helpful thing for people in addiction, but it's also true of people who want to start running, people who are on a diet. These stages of change make a difference in helping you understand that. Okay, so let's talk about why people change. Now, there's lots and lots of theories around that. And I thought I'd go through some of these different theories and figure out what the different schools of thought are and which ones I like, which ones I think maybe aren't so helpful. But what I figured out as I was preparing this was that every one of these theories has an element that might be useful to somebody. And so when you're working with a coach, which we'll talk about in a little bit, it might be useful to assess their level of knowledge around these ideas. Behaviorism is the idea that change is shaped by rewards, consequences, and the environment. If you think about theorists who you may have studied in school like Skinner, B.F. Skinner, or Pavlov's dog, you've probably heard of the bell and the salivating and the feeding, right? Change is shaped by rewards, consequences, and the environment. So that is one of the theories, that behaviorism is changed. Behavior is shaped by rewards and consequences. That is somewhat helpful for some people, but not for me. Now, most therapists would tell you that they think this is true. Cognitive theory says change happens when beliefs and thought patterns shift. So if we change your core belief about a problem or yourself, and we change your thought patterns, you rewire your brain so that your behavior then changes. That's pretty standard therapy stuff. I like social cognitive theory, which talks about collaborative effort and seeing others succeed around you, which increases your belief in your own ability to change, that we're doing this together as a unit. And while you may have to do your part individually, seeing other people, that's a good thing. Psychodynamic theory says that change happens by resolving unconscious conflicts or old patterns. I would argue that my book Soul Audit, which is about soul alignment, which is about resolving unconscious conflicts, is in line with psychodynamic theory. And again, for some people, that's very, very important. I think for most people, that's why I wrote a book about it. And then self-determination says that motivation sticks when it's intrinsic. So this would clash with the behaviorist who says behavior changes or motivation comes from rewards externally. This is self-determination theory. A lot of us struggle with that. We're going to talk about discipline in our self-care segment later on, and we'll address more of that in a second. I think motivation has two factors, a push factor, a pull factor. Push factors are pain, loss, fear, consequences, and crisis. Pull factors are hope, opportunity, and a vision of a better future. Ideally, in order to motivate people, you take push and pull and work them together. Basically, the idea that discomfort plus hope equals change. That's my math equation. Discomfort plus hope equals change. So the book chapter was about helping other people change. And what she didn't talk about in that chapter was motivational interviewing, which is a very specific type of intervention that we use as therapists sometimes when you're trained in it to help people move stages of change that we talked about earlier. So when you are working with somebody who's asking you for help with changing a problem, whether it be somebody who's got an addiction issue or somebody who wants to start working out or somebody who wants to think about themselves differently and their self-esteem. You express empathy. That's the first step. I can tell this is very hard for you. You listen without judgment. Then you develop discrepancy. You start to show the gap between the current state and their desired future. I hear you saying you want to change, but I see that you're still doing these things. That's developing discrepancy. You roll with resistance. You don't argue with people. You just work with them where they are. So once you've pointed out the discrepancy without judgment, you just sort of live in that space with them, in that discomfort, hopefully, with the hope of what's better, will push them towards change. And finally, you support self-efficacy, which happens through highlighting strengths and past successes, and you sort of help them maintain. So I don't know if that's helpful to you or not, but the bottom line,
'Cause that's the bottom line.
is that change isn't a one-time event, it's a process. You can't make it happen for someone else, but you can create conditions where it's more likely to happen. So if you are a boss, a parent, a spouse, you do have some power to help people change. Manipulation isn't a bad word. So once you do that, once you make the conditions, discomfort and hope, you then step back and let them own their process. Hope that makes sense to you. Next week, we'll talk about chapters 16 and 17, which is helping someone who is struggling. And we'll keep reading The Let Them Theory by Mel Robbins. It's a really fantastic book, and I hope you're enjoying it.
It's the Bitter Book Club. It's the Bitter Book Club. Book Club.
Don't you love the jingles? Don't you love the music? I do. Hey, if you are in the Cincinnati area this week, this Saturday, biggest show of the Northern Wrestling Federation's year is called Summer Sizzler. And it happens this Saturday at the Thomas More Stadium, which is where the Florence Y'alls baseball team plays in Florence, Kentucky. The doors are going to open at 4:30. The bell time is going to be 6:30. And it is a stacked card full of specialty matches. And I promise that the wrestlers have basically spent their entire year dreaming of this day. So if you come out to see the show, you will not regret it. So that's this Saturday. Just wanted to plug that real quick. I think we should talk about self-care.
Protect the gimmick. Take a break, don't be a cynic. Your body's the brand, your mind's the show. You can't make even if you're running on low. Protect the gimmick.
Got to protect the gimmick. If you remember, our August theme for self-care is discipline. And we had an affirmation last week that I liked. We're going to use it again. It's, I am walking in my purpose with strength and excitement. I love what I have to offer the world. I enjoy honing my craft. I am a flaming ball of opportunity. I'm walking in my purpose with strength and excitement. I love what I have to offer the world, and I enjoy honing my craft. And I am a flaming ball of opportunity. But today, in the book of self-care that we use, Dr. Zoe Shaw, she talked about self-sabotage. Something that we do often when we're trying to create a new habit. If you find yourself indulging in unhealthy habits and telling yourself, I deserve this, recognize that that is self-sabotage, not self-care. You don't deserve anything that is harmful for you, even if it feels good in the moment. We in this culture and society have this weird thing about what we deserve. I deserve this. Maybe you don't. But ultimately, I do want you to find good things. And so the analogy I've been using when talking about this with clients this lately is that I may think I deserve ice cream. But what I really deserve is green beans. Not because ice cream is terrible or because I shouldn't be able to enjoy that, but because green beans are going to give me vitamins and things that are good for my body, which is ultimately what I do deserve, right? I don't deserve abs if I don't put any effort towards it. I don't deserve ice cream just because I am a good person. I can have ice cream if I want to, but just know that I might be sabotaging behavior change. Now, don't worry, I'm not on a diet. I don't care how I look. I know that Machine Gun often worries I'm going to keel over and die one day, and he's probably right. But I'm happy. I'm not trying to change that about myself. I'm trying to not overdo it, though, or get diabetes out of control where I lose a leg. That would be bad. But I'm not really in active behavior change. So some of this stuff for me is me more coaching you through things, if you're interested in that. But the point is, don't think about deserving things as always rewarding with the sugar or rewarding with the thing that feels good in the moment. Sometimes you deserve things that have a longer consequence. Here's a new affirmation we might be able to think about this week. I deserve to be well taken care of. I deserve to be healthy. I love myself enough to avoid the things that don't provide that for me. I deserve to be well taken care of. I deserve to be healthy. And I love myself to avoid the things that don't provide that for me. If you're in a relationship that sucks, where you're being abused or treated poorly, you do deserve to be taken care of. So we need to avoid that. I deserve to be healthy. I need to make sure I'm exercising and not skipping the gym. I need to make sure I'm not eating just crap. Makes sense? Self-discipline is not punishment. It's the daily choice to do what you said you'd do. If you made a commitment that you're going to get on the horse with a diet, exercise, new ways of thinking, relationship stuff, you made that choice and you made a commitment. So self-discipline is just honoring that commitment. It's not about punishing you by not letting you have ice cream. And when you feel self-sabotage sneaking in, shrink the goal until it's impossible to say no. Like, I said I was going to go for a walk every day. Now I'm not wanting to do that. I'm sabotaging that. But I can just shrink the goal. I'm just going to go out and walk around the block. Or in my case, walk around my building. Shrink the goal. I can do that. Maybe it's Atomic Habits, another book that I like. Maybe we'll read that next. He would say, break it down to the very smallest particle under 2 minutes. Maybe the goal is to put my running shoes on. Once my running shoes are on, I'm teed up to go running. I'm more likely to go. So the goal is shrunk. Something to think about. I'm basically selling new ways of thinking and living when I do therapy, right? I'm trying to help people behave differently and think differently. And there's two mechanisms that do that. It's awareness and practice. So I'm selling new ways of thinking and living through the idea that we need to be aware and then practice new things. Awareness spots the sabotage and practice keeps you moving forward. If you think any of this is helpful and you're interested in maybe doing some coaching around behavior change, especially if you're like interested in doing some creative project that you've been putting off or having trouble getting started with or staying on task with, I'd love to talk with you about writing or podcasting. But also, I am not a fitness coach or a health coach, but I can help you with figuring out ways to make your new behaviors change and stick. So if you're interested in that, you can go to my website, kirksheppard.com/coaching. I've got some packages there. I've got some new creative stuff coming up with NaNoWriMo, which is the National Novel Writing Month in November. If you're interested in writing a novel, we can coach around that. I have other options there as well. So anyway, just a quick plug. If you are interested in any kind of this work more personalized to you, reach out. I'd love to see what we can come up with for you. Yeah?
Protect the gimmick.
So that's going to do it for this week.
Take a break, don't be
I hope you've had a good time. I want to thank Terry Funk for being our wrestler of the day, the memory of the late Terry Funk. I want to thank you for reading the Let Them Theory. I want to thank you for hanging in there with me on discipline and self-sabotage. Next week, we'll see what comes up. I don't know. We'll read the book. Who knows who our wrestler of the day is going to be? Who knows what it's going to lead to in self-care? Who knows what else I want to talk about? Make sure you check out my Substack over at kirksheppard.substack.com. Make sure you're watching the Good Brothers TV show. If you're in the Northern Wrestling Federation vicinity in Florence, Kentucky, stop by and see us. If you're there, please say hi. Don't forget to join the Patreon if you're not already in there. If you're watching this on YouTube, Falcon's Nest is where it is, man. You want to be part of this group of people who are really kind to each other, really supportive, and enjoy the Good Brothers and professional wrestling. That's going to do it for me. Thanks for being here. We will see you next week. And that has been A Bitter Pill to Swallow.
It's a bitter pill to swallow.
The Bitter Pill with Kirk Sheppard is part of the Talk and Shop media empire. The preceding video was produced as educational and entertainment content only. Kirk Sheppard is a licensed mental health therapist. However, the material on this broadcast should not be considered clinical or representative of his professional work in that context.
It's a bitter pill to swallow.
Professor Bitterman is a fictional character and may not reflect his actual views and opinions. For more content from Kirk Sheppard, go to kirksheppard.com. Follow him on Facebook and Instagram, and subscribe to his Substack and YouTube channels.
Please subscribe to the Talk and Shop podcast on YouTube for more content from the Good Brothers.